Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we're going to talk about what's good and what's bad for your mental health. So mental health can be literally put into two categories: anxiety and depression, and also trauma. So this is kind of like worry is like anxiety, and depression's like trauma. So you might have heard the saying that anxiety is living in the future and depression is living in the past. Because when you're depressed, you kind of, you're beating yourself up over your past. You're letting your past define who you are. And then anxiety is worrying about how you're going to deal with that and change your perspective and how you're going to come through the bad times, right? So that's it in a nutshell. So symptoms of anxiety are basically high heart rate, and that is basically what anxiety is your heart rate being too high for what you're doing. That's why running will just cure your anxiety pretty much instantly, because when you come back from the run, your heart rate's just going to drop right lower than what it was before you went for the run. And also, it's going to lower your cortisol levels. So that's basically what anxiety is, built up cortisol. That's why like CBD is good for your anxiety, because it messes with the central nervous system. Well, it doesn't mess with it, sorry. It sort of deals with the central nervous system being in what's called flight or flight. And when you're dealing with trauma and depression, you sort of go into fight mode. And then when you're anxious and worried, you go into flight mode. So you become flighty. So that's how you sort of got to get it into your head on how to deal with which side you're on. And then obviously ultimately you have to like live in the moment. And that's why running's so good, because when you're running, you're nothing else but living in the moment. It's you there. I've just been out for an 8k run there, and it was just me and the stars. I didn't even put any music on until I got to like 6 kilometers, because I found it was getting a little bit hard, and I only wanted to put one song on, which is the song I'm going to use in my reel that I'm going to post. So how can we deal with these things? So anxiety, because think of a nurse. A nurse is full of anxiety because she's running around and she's got a lot of cortisol built up in her system because of the stress and the dealing with all the patients and the illnesses and the stresses that they have to deal with from day to day. So the best thing for anxiety, there's actually a book out. You need to slow down. That's what you need to do. You need to slow down because your heart rate's too high for what you're doing. So you might be rushing around too much. And the cure to anxiety is just slowing right down. Slow down. Everything has to be slow. Walking, talking, thinking. Yeah. Like even as much as doing the dishes. So if you just slow down doing them dishes, the reason why you have to slow down is because your brain wants to process things. And if you're rushing around all the time, your brain just can't, it's too busy with dealing with the now, and you can't sort of let those thoughts run through your head and process them properly. And obviously with all the cortisol and stuff like that. So that's anxiety. And then depression and trauma is basically obviously like financial stress and trauma stress from losing loved ones or losing a dog or something like that. And the thing is with trauma, right, guys, is we all deal with trauma in different ways. But the thing is, as an individual, like me, for example, when I deal with trauma, I isolate. So what happens is every time I have to deal with trauma, I turn back to that same process in which I use time after time, no matter what the trauma is. So for example, if you're somebody who deals with trauma with drugs and alcohol, you're going to always turn to that process to deal with that trauma until you until you flip the script on it, basically. So that's why a lot of people, when they eventually come to deal with their trauma, they turn to the gym, because it's kind of switching up. I can't think of the proper term that I was trying to use. I should have written it down, but yeah, to deal with you kind of need to like find a new way to deal with the trauma. And going to the gym is a new fantastic way for anyone to deal with their trauma. That's why a lot of people say us ultra runners, like Goggins and all us mental ultra runners, we deal with that with trauma. It's kind of true in a way, because like all the other options that we've chose through our life to deal with it haven't worked. And then eventually when you find something like running ultra marathons and it works, well, of course, it's a new way to deal with that trauma. So depression is basically like they kind of say it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is true. So that's why you get SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, to help you. But one of the things, guys, and this is where we're going to go deep into the nitty gritties of it. Let's talk about men and women, because we'll talk about that, men versus women, because it's now coming to terms with the world that men and women are different, right? So women are put on this world to do what? Create babies, right? So they create babies. And that's mostly a woman's goal in life, is if she hasn't had a baby, she's failed. That's her ultimate goal, is to create new life. And men, obviously, they take a part in this. But because we don't create the babies, we have to create something else. Which is why they always say men built the pyramids, men built everything. And because that's literally our job, is to create things. And one of the worst things for men's mental health is procrastination. So a man will always tell himself, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And think about it, if you've got a girlfriend or a family or a wife, and you tell her, I'm going to do this, she holds you accountable every single time. She'll say, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? When's this happening? When's that happening? I thought you were going to do this. I thought you were going to do that. And she's holding you accountable. And that's actually not good for your mental health. You want to be holding yourself accountable and having to get these things done before she nags you enough to do it. And try it, guys. Like it could be anything. It could be like, I thought you were going to book this holiday. I thought you were going to paint this room. I thought you were going to go and do this run, like say, or it could even be, right, I'm going to lose some weight. And then all of a sudden you're saying, oh, I want to start eating healthy. And then you order a takeaway. Your lass or your wife's going to be the first one who says, I thought you were eating healthy. Oh, yeah, we're going, I thought you were eating healthy now. Oh, well, bloody, blah. You know what I mean, don't you? So this is where men have to create things in order to help their own mental health. So even me creating content, creating training programs for myself, even though I'm a PT and I haven't got any clients yet, I still create training programs for myself and ready for when people actually want to come to us and say, look, I want to run a 20-minute 5K, or I want to be able to bench with 100 kilos, or I want to be able to do 1,000 press-ups. I've got that training plan ready to price up and sell and say, like, this is how much it's going to cost. And then if you want one-to-one training on top of that, this is what it's going to be. And it's an investment for them, an investment in their health. And that's what men always like to do. We like to invest in things. We like to invest our time in things. And we like to invest our energy into things. And if you're just, and this is the thing between creation, which is what I watched a guy basically called Man in the Woods, and he said it perfectly. You can either create or you can consume. And that's your life balance. So people say like work-life balance is essential, but most people's work-life balance is going to work and then consuming TV, consuming goods, consuming alcohol, consuming drugs, consuming even if you're on a self-development journey and you're reading a book, you're still consuming, because you can consume as much information as you want, but if you're not putting that into practice to create something, then obviously that's going to lead to depression. And then obviously that's where the anxiety comes into it. So if you get out the depression and think, all right, well, I'm actually feeling much better now, that anxiety is going to come, because you're going to go, well, what am I going to do now with this newfound happiness that I've got? You know what I mean? And that's where it becomes difficult. Like for me, like when I feel better, it's like, oh shit, well, what am I going to do now? And like when I said I was going to run 50k for these 50 subs, when I hit that 50 subscribers, the anxiety kicked in, and it was like, shit, you got to go and run this 50k, Steve. See what I mean? And then when I did, and I created the content for you to watch, that's what gave me the buzz, and that's what gave me the dopamine rush. And like I said in the last video, the dopamine and the serotonin work hand in hand. When you say you're going to do something, your body builds up dopamine ready to release. And as dopamine goes up, serotonin goes down, and it's like that on purpose to make you actually do the task that you said you were going to do, so the body can release the dopamine and the serotonin can go up, and then you feel happy. It's not even that complicated. When you say you're going to do something, do it, the dopamine's released, the serotonin goes up, and then you're happy. It's that simple. It's really not even that complicated. So if you tell yourself you're going to go and run 10k on Saturday and you do it, that's when you feel happy. But if you don't, you're going to get depressed. So guys, that's pretty much that in a nutshell on like the other things. So I could go into a little bit of detail on what's good and what's bad for your mental health. So I'll quickly do that. So anxiety. What's good for anxiety, like I said, is going for a run and sort of getting rid of this worry. But also what's good for helping your anxiety is not drinking coffee. So stop drinking coffee and drink herbal teas instead, because that's going to calm the central nervous system down and work with the brain. And depression, right? So if you've got depression, the good thing for depression is, like I say, working on that dopamine serotonin thing and having a look at some maybe neurological nootropics. Look into some nootropics. Like you always hear like shilajit, lion's mane mushroom. But the truth is, guys, you know how I did it? Nettle tea. Nettle tea. If you can go online and buy yourself a big bag of fresh nettle, ground up nettles, or go out and pick some nettle teas this spring, like it is literally the real deal, man. Like fucking shilajit, man. Fucking, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff that you're just consuming more bullshit that they've sold you as well, and spending your money on stuff that's actually not helping. I mean, it is true that lion's mane mushroom will help you, but you want to be actually consuming some real lion's mane mushroom, because a lot of the time when you're buying these tablets, you don't know what's in them. And then depression. So we'll touch on some more things, because I don't want to touch on trauma just yet. I don't want to go too deep at the minute. We'll once we start getting more videos in and more people watching, then we'll go into like some of the harsher realities of depression and trauma. But for now, guys, thank you for watching, and like, comment and subscribe, and tell us if you've got any problems with anxiety or depression. Go into my description, email us with any, as long as it's not severe mental health where you know what I mean, I can help with typical depression and anxiety type of things. Other than that, you need to go and see a specialist. But thank you very much, guys, and good night.